This is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Hi, listeners. Welcome to this episode of
you were talking
AMCP.
over my knee. Stop!
It's episode 63. We're here.
Sorry, Ross. He's just too depressed. So, for those listeners of you who maybe didn't see our Twitter feed a little less than a week ago, we recorded about half an hour of this episode and then discovered that it wasn't recording
with a
properly.
super funny intro. Chris and I were on a roll making fun of Ross. It was hilarious.
Solid. It was now, yeah. This is the first time in over a year of doing this that this has ever happened. We have never had to re-record something before, so that's awesome. Kudos, Ross.
Yep.
But we really don't know how this works now.
It just totally deflated.
We're all like,
balloon.
we want you to enjoy, like that. You don't know how majestically wonderful that episode was. It's lost forever
really
to the hands of time.
Good.
It was
like
so hilarious.
Timing,
you all would have been laughing, but then also poignantly in tears. Like it was beautiful.
It was,
and it's gone forever.
Yeah, the timing on those interruptions were just
fantastic. Yeah, we were on a roll. That might have been the best sequence of interrupting Ross we've ever done.
It was so good.
Yeah, that's very true.
Even Ross agrees. Yeah. Dang it!
So fetch. Let's do this over again. I'm Kyler.
I'm Chris.
I'm Ross.
Ross is chipper.
I had so much energy the first time, and having to just. I'm so bummed out. Ross, do your stupid.
We're gonna try and make this still be funny without just, woodenly
That's
repeating our
how
old
deflated
jokes.
I am. Just
Kyler is so put off that he said newsy news.
Whoa! Sorry, I was talking.
I told him to do his stupid newsy news. Do it, Ross. Do it.
We had a discussion about how it should be big news from now. Everything that happens is big news.
Maybe we should just recap the news we already did without giving it to him. We don't know how to pronounce effing Kevin's name. Kevin Feige.
That Marvel Kevin.
We don't know.
The effing Kevin.
Effing Kevin. He's doing a Star Wars now.
Because
okay, so there's your first bit of news.
He's doing a Star Wars.
Here's the newsy news, so that you can actually get the real stuff, and our frustrations do not have to be taken out on you.
Yeah, that's true. Come on.
Yeah, come on, Kyler. We have a show to put on.
We are quasi-trained semi-professionals.
That's true. Let's do it.
We need some more adequacy. So, first up, in the newsy news, I'm just covering all my bases to make sure we do it again. Is that Kevin Probably Feige?
Probably Feige. We looked this up and found conflicting reports.
Yeah.
Google told us
several different ways to say it.
Google told us one thing, YouTube told us another, and
nobody knows.
The way English
Reddit told us a different way.
Is another one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's no good.
Anyway, you've probably
Kevin, that's
all
where
heard
we got
by
that.
now that Kevin Feige is moving from the Marvel universe to the Star Wars universe. The article that we have posted and that we're seeing the most of is saying that they're giving him a movie to do.
And he's developing, like we're not sure.
Yeah.
Probably he's a producer. Presumably, that's been his role.
So
maybe he's jumping into directing. I don't know.
So that might be new, and that would be kind of weird for him to jump into a directing role. I would think,
but I mean, people have done it. You know?
True.
Ben Affleck is one heck of a director, and that's not where he started out.
Yeah.
So.
There have been also. I've been thinking about it, and one of the other podcasts I listen to is also kind of thinking maybe a lot of these things that we're hearing people are being added onto Star Wars projects, maybe some of those are actually the same things.
Yeah, that's absolutely
we have
possible.
Writers, we have a producer, we have a director, all two of them are doing trilogies, they may or may not be the same, so maybe some of these are doubling up, maybe Kevin is doing the same thing like he did at Marvel and is just going to be the producer behind all of it, or just one, who knows.
Yeah. It seems the news so far is he is developing a movie. That's what we've gotten so far. So.
Yep. And to recap what we had said before, Kyler is negative on this because he is
on
Marvel.
I don't want Marvel flavor coming into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I want Marvel flavor, I will watch a Marvel movie. So I don't want it to become Marvel.
Worried that he'll bring too much of the tone of Marvel, which I don't know how much of that was really him to begin with is the thing for me. Like, I really feel like the Marvel tone, quote unquote, though, as particularly as bothers you, is a result of the Russo brothers trying to imitate Joss Whedon and not being Joss Whedon.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
so blame Joss.
No. Joss did a good job.
Yes.
Blame the Russo brothers for trying to ape Joss.
That was another thing we all missed in the old intro, was I was trying to needle Kyler, and I started to get it on Chris just then. So
Ross wants to be
I had
non-lawful
such a good
with us,
one too on Ross that you guys missed. Whoever it was that said that Ross's silences speak volumes, you missed an epic one. It
was a good one.
Quite good.
Yeah,
And it's all lost now. I'm so
It's okay.
sad
It's
for
okay.
you guys.
We're moving on. We're moving on.
Okay.
What's the next bit of
we
news,
have to give
Ross?
him a minute to stew.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
can get back on track.
We'll just do the news, the two of us, and
There we go. Yeah. Next, we have news coming out of Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge. Just a quick note about the Rise of the Resistance ride and how it's apparently going to be a full 15-minute thing,
That is way cool.
thing.
which is awesome.
Like
which
15
is-
minutes.
yeah.
That's a long time to be on a ride.
The first 10 minutes of the ride is waiting in line while you watch.
Well,
Nice try, Disney.
No, it's
We're
in
on to
story.
you.
You're being processed at an Imperial Detention Center. That's the first 10 minutes, which, in all honesty, is really great for bureaucracy getting you through a line.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
That would be that would be impressive for Disneyland in some cases.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, only 10
Note,
minutes.
ride may be up to half an hour or even an hour in length.
Here's a question I just
2
had.
hours on busy days.
Do we know how long Smuggler's Run is, the Millennium Falcon ride?
A few minutes.
It's about 20 feet. I don't know.
20 feet.
No, I don't know how long
it's-
it is for sure.
34 meters. Come on, Chris. We had this discussion
We did.
in several episodes ago when I was talking about the Ghost versus the Falcon, which was
Oh,
longer.
that's
Yeah.
right.
We looked them up.
I lose track of a lot of things we've discussed.
Yeah.
Kyler posted about the Kevin Feige moving over. You tweeted on Twitter where you were like, I didn't think that Chris would be proven right this quickly. And I was like, yeah. I totally remember making that. Yep, I am a prognosticator among prognosticators.
You know, full disclosure, I also had no idea what he was talking about.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Was that a thing?
What?
Did Chris talk about?
I don't remember now.
I've talked a
I don't
lot
remember
about.
what I was talking about. I just assume Chris is right most of the time.
It's
Thank
true.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
I do
like
too,
that.
unfortunately. But,
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
I'm
well,
trying to remember if
looks
there's
like we
anything
got some
else.
new humor now in this episode.
Yeah. Was there anything else that we said about that? I don't remember.
yeah, it's good. We got
Okay.
it.
Moving on. We have a comment from J.J. Abrams talking about the addition of.
Sometimes I really regret not having a video in
I
streaming
actually,
here.
when we eventually set up a Patreon, I want to do a series of video ones that are just locked behind a Patreon wall.
Yes.
And I want to do, so hey, here, listeners, tell us if you would like this, because I want to do any visually heavy episodes that we might have done that we've been putting off because they're visually heavy, like the best Star Wars memes episode.
Yeah.
We do them on YouTube and lock them, and we put them up as a Patreon bonus, and then we also like get my sister on to talk about the art of Star Wars, because seriously, she could do
visual,
like
yeah.
a movie per episodes. She could go on
down
and
with
she
that.
could do like 3 episodes on The Last Jedi. And so,
I'd be fascinated with that.
yeah,
Actually,
it could be fun. So hey,
Okay.
let us know if you'd like that.
Yeah. So we have comments from JJ talking about the re-inclusion of Palpatine in the series. Cliff notes of it are just that he says it doesn't really make sense to have an overarching villain for the first 6 chapters of a 9-chapter book. That you need to have some sort of tie-in for the ending of your book, right? Makes sense.
Yeah, not faulty reasoning.
Yeah.
Like if this is a 3 trilogy, then yeah, you got to tie it together somehow at the end.
Yeah.
That's
A non-nilogy.
yes.
There we go.
There you go. So, I mean, yeah, and what we were talking about last time is, I mean, yeah, the reasoning is sound enough, but, I mean, who knows if it'll work out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and really, honestly, I feel like this is just a result of the shift in marketing that they've done with, because when they released episode 7 and 8, it was not, no one ever said, oh yes, this is a 9-episode saga. That was never,
Right.
they really brought that
Yeah.
in now, and we're like, oh, we're worried about the backlash that some people have towards the sequel trilogy, so we just want to reassure them that this isn't everything. So we're going to be like, oh yeah, closing off the saga. And then JJ went, well, if we're going to do that, then we got to have Palpatine somewhere.
Yeah.
And to me, that just, I don't know, I still think it seems a little silly, because obviously Palpatine is there episode 1, 2, 3. He's in the background, though not on
He's
screen,
implied
but he's
to be there
mentioned
in 4,
in
yeah.
4, and then he is on screen in 5 and 6.
Briefly in 5.
Nowhere mentioned in 7. Nowhere mentioned in 8.
He is mentioned.
No,
in
he
it
is mentioned in
briefly. but-
Is he 8?
Yeah, Darth Sidious. Luke references him,
Oh.
but briefly mentioned.
You know, but it's like to me, it's like, oh, he's the overarching villain. Really, though? Was this really
Well,
your
see,
plan?
I don't
Because in 7 and 8,
necessarily
he's not
feel that's
there.
what they are doing. That he's.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's not what they're
I
doing.
hope
Is an
not.
overarching. Oh, he was pulling the strings all along.
Yeah. I see, and I had felt going into this set of series, especially when Force Awakens released, that this series is just going to be a passing the torch. This is just going to be setting up the Star Wars universe for more movies, more books.
Yeah.
You know, it's taking what
Which,
we had.
in which case, it would make sense to be like, so we're setting this up as the close of what you knew, and now we're leaving things open for everything else.
But it also, had they not decided to redo Palpatine this time, it probably wouldn't have missed it. You know, had
Yeah,
they done with
exactly.
something
That's
else.
why I think it's
So.
a lame excuse to put him in.
But with that said, I think I'm more in favor of having that sort of appearance, that sort of bow tied on the entire 9-series trilogy.
It has potential. Yeah.
So again, I mean, it all could go both ways. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Let's go enjoy a Star Wars movie, everyone. Oh, that's another thing we missed.
What?
We had that whole long discussion about toxicity in the Star Wars
Yeah.
fandom.
Maybe we'll do that.
Don't be
time.
toxic
Yeah.
jerks. That's the summary. That's
Basically.
the takeaway.
Yeah.
Just be cool. Just like Star Wars, and if other people like Star Wars, that's cool.
in a different way than you.
And if they like it in a different way than you, or like other things more than you like some things, and other things less than you, guess what? It's okay, guys. Star Wars is cool. We should be encouraging people to like Star Wars, not discouraging that.
Yeah.
If you want to hate on something, go hate on Star Trek. I mean,
Chris, no.
Go listen to our Star Trek episode to find out why that's not cool either.
yeah, no, it's
Because
not.
Star Trek is great.
It is.
And
So-
then one final piece of unofficial news that Kyler did last time that I guess
Oh yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just
We got to
come
do
this
the
time.
the unofficial.
Oh, yeah.
news.
The
So-
podcast. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
It is his
Okay,
news
that's fine.
technically. So
The podcast has now brought on board an unofficial mascot, Akbar the Pug.
Whoa, Ross, if we're going to make this the podcast's mascot...
yeah, I was gonna say if you're putting him up there, then I feel like that
then-
means we get some say in this.
We have all added our own things into this podcast that are still ours individually. So no.
So, Ross, go ahead and tell the listeners what specifically about this pug is so very wrong.
Not a thing. He's a
So,
perfect
Ross,
little angel.
no, tell him what the name is, and then we'll discuss why you're so...
He did say the name.
Oh, you did?
Akbar the
So-
Pug.
Akbar
yes.
the Pug.
Carrie and I decided we were going to get a puppy, and you know, researching and all that.
It's
stuff,
very
decided,
cute, by the way.
Yeah, decided that pugs were the best way
I mean,
to
it's a
go.
pug, so it's okay.
But obviously, the most identifying mark of a pug is these big old, massive, bulging eyes.
No.
right?
The smushed face.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway.
Continue, Ross.
And so, when looking at those eyes, and us being Star Wars fans, our thought was, well, we're going to name it after something Star Wars. What has big eyes? Star Wars. Admiral Akbar! So it's Akbar the Pug.
When clearly... the
That's a
pug
name for a fish.
That's a name for a fish, first of all. Second of all, you passed up Puggle the Lesser as a name. Ross,
Yeah.
come now.
You know,
Come now.
remember how episode 2 is completely pointless?
So he's in more than episode 2.
Is
He dies in
He's
episode
in
3.
three?
He's in the Clone Wars.
Is he in 3? Oh,
Yeah.
he is in
3
3.
is-
That's right.
yeah.
I
He
remember
dies.
briefly. He's such an inconsequential character. Why
That's
on
true.
earth would we name
That
a
is
dog
true.
Because the
after him?
name is so fantastic.
If you want a more consequential
pug.
character, you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm
That
ready.
you could
You name your dog Grand Moff Wilwolf Barkin.
Oh, yes!
Moff Barkin for sure.
I retract Puggle the Lesser. That's
See,
fantastic.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. When we did bring him home, we brought him home last Saturday.
That's good, Chris.
And,
That's so good.
We're sitting there looking at the dog, and Carrie leans over to me. She's like, "So, we can name a mannequin?" I was like, "No." She goes,
See, I assumed initially that they named him Anakin to like purge Carrie's weird desire to name a child Anakin
Yes.
out of her
well,
system.
but see, because then next she leans over to me and goes, "What was that other one in the podcast you guys were just talking about?" I was like, "Oh, Wilhoof." And she goes, "No, we're not naming him that." I was like, "Ah, okay, darn."
Yeah.
But
Not Wilhoof. Wilwolf.
Wilwolf Barkin.
Wilwolf
That's
Barkin.
fantastic.
Might have been good.
Thank you.
Chris, okay, when Carrie gets home from work, we have to convince her to
Just remember,
abandon
Carrie,
Akbar.
nothing's locked in stone right now. Like, this dog hasn't been trained to any specific name.
That's true.
Puggle the Lesser, Wilwolf Barkin, still on the table.
Yep. And instead of teaching him to cover his eyes when, say, it's a trap or something, we can teach him to say, charming to, do something when it's charming to the last or something. He can destroy Alderaan.
Yeah.
Lots of,
Put out a ball, call it Alderaan, and teach him to just tear that thing to pieces.
Yes, Ross, see? We're working on this. We're getting there.
That's a good idea, Chris. That was a good idea.
Yes. Chris, high five.
Maybe if we ever get a second one, maybe.
If you want him to stay, the command for stay is, perhaps we should evacuate.
In our moment of triumph, I think you underestimate our chances. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's like running towards you, and you're like, "It's our moment of triumph," and he just comes to a dead stop. You know, yeah.
Might be a little unwieldy, but
A little tough, but it's okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, I feel better about this.
all right.
Now.
We pulled Kyler
Yeah.
up out of his
Yeah,
doldrum.
my funk is gone now. Okay.
Oh no! Wait, hold on.
Oh.
Because I had to tell my other
Ross
part of
just
the story.
interrupted Kyler.
I know.
Whoa!
This is a bizarro episode.
But I was more polite about it because I said wait instead of just starting.
Oh, I don't
That's true.
care.
I was gonna say I was so disappointed when the guys came in today and I introduced them to
Yeah,
a new
sorry.
Star Wars themed dog. I was like, yeah, this is Akbar, and they just kind of looked at
I
me.
didn't get it though. I'm like Akbar.
Yeah,
I'm like
I
he's
also
not a
was
fish. He's not a
Akbar.
squid. He's not a lobster.
Does he set traps? I'm confused.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
Forget to close that cage. Traps everywhere.
That first day was a little rocky, but we've got to handle it.
There you go. I wondered though why, like, because I come into your house and I see your kitchen blocked off. I'm like, what the heck is going on over
Yeah.
there? Do they have like small children over here or
Well,
something?
and you'll notice we've had the upholstery cleaner on hand, just in case with
I
the
see.
special pet formulas.
There you go.
So
Okay.
So, our official notes for this episode, I'm going to say them because Kyler's done this several times for me, and I've never really done it properly for him before. The notes here say, Kyler, take it away.
And I shall.
again,
Yep. Again. Here we go.
For the last time.
yeah. Now we both need to turn around and check to make sure it's
Yeah,
still
for
recording.
real. Make sure before we have to do this a third time. Okay, so let me see if I can introduce this topic in a more coherent way than last time. So, I'm a historian.
And
Hopefully,
we
you
won't
know
make
that
fun
by
of you
now.
as hard as what we did before.
And
You? A historian?
yeah,
That's never come
so about a third of what I studied as a grad student was various. Well, history of monks, basically, is what it was. I ended up just by what classes were offered and when I needed to take them.
Yeah.
History,
The monk class is a solid option, but
Yeah.
mostly if you
I think
multi-class,
they need
it's
more
kind of
key
weak on
points,
its own.
really.
You know
so,
what? But it's really great to not have to eat or breathe later at those higher levels.
Oh yeah, but you can get that in other ways too.
yeah.
In fact, if you're playing 3.5 and you take the Elon race, then you can just donate 1 power point constantly. to
Elon,
not
don't you have
needing
to be a
eat
bard
or-
to take that?
As a matter of fact, no. But
So many references. Sorry, listeners.
Hopefully, if you're nerdy enough to get all of those references, let me know, because I definitely want to start separating the wheat from the chaff among our listeners.
That's right.
Who's really cool and who is less
Okay.
cool?
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll give
obviously, the ones who know all of that being the less cool ones.
No way.
we'll give a lame prize to anyone that can figure out all those references.
I have several lame prizes
I do
on
as well,
hand.
actually,
Yeah,
that I keep
okay.
forgetting to tell you guys about.
Fantastic. So,
I
a
have
lame
nothing for
prize could be yours. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I ended up studying monks, the history of Christian monks from like the 2nd century through like the 12th or 13th century, 14th century, somewhere.
He's a
But-
historian. He doesn't need to be that precise.
Nope, especially not as a medieval historian. We can't even agree on when our period starts or ends. So watching Star Wars Rebels, I realized that Ezra Bridger's journey through the Force, so to speak, as he learns about the Force and starts to master it and learns to master himself and training with Kanan and all those kinds of things, very, very similar to early desert fathers in the Egyptian and Syrian deserts, like 2nd through 4th century. I happen, in my professional career, to have done some original research in that area, which our good host Chris here was kind enough to edit for me after I wrote it up,
Not a
and
problem.
he made it much better, and then it got torn apart again by the professor and sent back to Chris, repeat that process about 12 times, and then it was finally ready to present to the world.
Slight exaggeration of my involvement with that.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
had to.
Yeah, I think you edited it twice because I kept giving it to the professor. I'm like, well, I'm not going to make Chris go through this again, so I'll let her finish tearing it up until she says it's good, and then I'll give it to Chris one more time.
So this paper is titled Lions in the Desert, The Significance and Symbolism of Lions in Early Egyptian Monastic Literature.
Yeah.
See, and last time we did that, the joke was to say Gesundheit to Kyler, but you just did it so elegantly.
He did it better.
That's how I read
Yeah.
Harry Potter to my boys.
Fantastic.
Also The Hobbit. Anything by a British author, that's how I read it.
There you go.
Very nice. So this became a research paper.
Note for our listeners, Kyler is not a British author. But
That is true.
Well.
Not yet.
If you look back far enough,
What?
Williamson, so you would have been European somewhere.
William Senn, though, it's Danish.
Right, but you probably would have, your family probably would have
Danes.
immigrated and probably had some British in you somewhere.
We do.
There you go.
The Tudors.
Aha! Found it. Do it again, Chris. Oh, no, wait, you did it right the first time.
Ross screws himself up.
Right.
So I presented this paper at the, what does it say? The 50th International Congress on Medieval Studies, which is the largest conference in the world for that. And so, yeah, it was pretty good.
He had a standing ovation. People were weeping in their seats.
All 7 of them.
Yep.
No, there were like 30 people there. Although, I did get lots of compliments from the monks that were there in attendance.
Oh,
that's cool.
Monks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's a particular order of
Ninja monks.
Yeah, it's crap. I don't want to get it wrong. I can't remember the order, but anyway, this particular session of the conference was sponsored by this order of monks, and they selected my paper to do it. And so then, like, the head of their order that was there was like, "That was really interesting. Oh, that's really great. Can I get a copy of that?" I'm like, sure, have this one.
That's awesome.
I don't need it anymore. Anyway, oh boy. So
I've presented on this, and I will never use it again unless I make a Star Wars podcast with my friends.
yeah, could not have foreseen that. Because the last time this had any edits or was printed was like 2015.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, anyway. So these early Christian monks would go to the desert to get away from the world and master themselves and get their spirituality in order to become closer to God and, like, you know, ensure their salvation and all those good things. And one of the things that would happen, at least one of the things that I postulate would happen as a result of these things, is that you would see the mark of their spirituality, the sort of more spiritual they were, the more control they had over their environment, specifically dangerous animals. And specifically lions, because lions appeared the most frequent in these stories.
True that.
And so, looking at stories of lions through all these ancient desert fathers, a pattern appeared, and I wrote about it, and that pattern is basically what I said. Like, the more spiritual you are, the more ascetic you are, the more you deny yourself, the more holy you are, and the more holy you are, you can control these people. And
creatures.
Creatures, that's true.
Controlling people, generally not
that's true.
Not a high mark.
And so these, I noticed that Ezra Bridger's journey really pretty closely matches this, and particularly one set of episodes, which we'll get to in a little bit. But these early Christian fathers looked to Old Testament examples to say, see, we're doing this correctly. So you had, like, Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel's obviously super spiritual. He is himself an ascetic, according to these monks, because he's fasting. He's not eating the king's food. He eats very little and very dressed down food. He doesn't eat fancy food, right? It's just the simple gruel,
No caviar
basically.
for him.
Yeah, exactly. And so these monks are like, well, see, Daniel's doing all these things. Look at the great spirituality and power and connection with divine, the divine that he had. That's what we should be, right? And all sorts of things. Moses as well. So then we get to one of probably the most famous desert father, Saint Anthony. He has a great story about an interaction he had with a lion. So he's walking through the desert. He's decided, and this is right at the beginning of his journey, he decides, I'm going to go be a holy man so that I can get right with God.
So this is still Act 1. He's just about to heed the call to adventure.
So exactly. Well, that's really actually pretty good. But so this first stage of the monks' spirituality is sort of the violent stage, where they're just starting out. They haven't mastered their spiritual powers, so the encounter usually ends poorly. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they get eaten. In a couple stories, that was pretty fun. So many good stories in history.
Didn't master your spiritual powers fast enough there, bub.
Nope. So Saint Anthony, he's walking through the desert. He doesn't even know where he's going. He's just like, I've heard there's like a community of monks over that way, so I'm going to go. And a bunch of demons, or a demon in the form of a lion, comes and besets him, starts trying to tempt him to go back, and you don't want to live this life. And Anthony rebukes him. He says, if you had any power over me, just one of you would be enough against me. But because the Lord has destroyed your power, you attempt to terrify me with a mob. If you are able... because one demon is like the one speaking to him, but there's a whole bunch of other demons that have taken the forms of like snakes and scorpions and other kinds of things.
As demons are wont.
Right, yeah, exactly. So if you are able and have authority
Snakes,
over me, don't
scorpions,
stop, but
mothers-in-law.
attack now. If you're not able, why do you bother me in vain? For our seal and purity and wall of protection is our faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. And so he's getting attacked while he's saying this to the lions, or to the demon as a lion. They're kind of scratching him and beating him up, and then he calls out and he's like, oh, you can't actually do anything to hurt me because Jesus is bueno, right? And I believe in him.
Indeed he is.
And the demons then stop and kind of go away, but Anthony is still all cut up and whatever from the encounter.
Yeah. He looks a little bit like Anakin post-lava.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. And so then he goes. So the next stage, which in this paper I have a second and third stage out of 4, but I later combined them because it makes more sense. So sort of the non-violent or just sort of passive stage. So we have banishment. Sometimes the lions, the holy person will be like, I'm not powerful enough to necessarily like bend this lion to my will and make him do what I want, but I can at least tell the lion to go bother somebody else somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of one sort of passive thing.
When you're referring to it as I'm not powerful enough, are you meaning like faithful
enough? Yeah, spiritually
enough?
powerful enough. That they're not. Yeah, they're not holy enough.
They haven't leveled up enough.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much that they have not mastered the self through asceticism fully enough that then exudes itself on the world around.
You don't get mastery over beasts until like level 15.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to level up. So, then we come to another story as you kind of get a little bit more powerful, a little bit more spiritual, humble, all those kinds of things. So we have a story, John the Anchorite. He's walking, he's going to visit one little cluster of hermits, or he's living in one cluster of hermits and going to visit another, and there's a big, like, briar patch. It's like the only path through this, but it's big thorny stuff on either side. So, undaunted, the record states, quote, the elder would not turn back and yield the right of the way to the lion. So he's walking on this path. There's no way to go. You can either go forward or backwards because it's super thick brambles on either side. And he sees the lion coming up the opposite way, blocking his way. So when the lion saw the servant of God intended to go straight forwards and that he would under no circumstances retrace his steps, it stood up on its rear paws. When it was upright, it leaned against the hedge to the left of the elder. With its weight and its physical strength, it widened the passage a little, and this allowed the righteous man to continue his journey without interruption.
Remember, kids, don't try this at home.
Yeah, this is only for the super ascetics.
That's right.
So again,
if you see a lion coming the other way, don't play chicken.
He's not, the lion doesn't hurt him, but it doesn't necessarily help him either. The lion is just kind of like,
I'll get out of your way.
Yep, I'll get out of your way. You go your way, I'll go mine. No harm, no foul. And so that's kind of this middle ground of these lions. So Ezra, we see that first stage as well, where he hasn't mastered the Force yet. Like there's one time where he's trying to like get a Lothcat to basically be his eyes. He's trying to like look through the Lothcat's eyes, and it turns and like jumps on his face and starts scratching him. There are other times where Ezra tries to control animals once realizing...
To be fair, that's just what cats do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But Ezra does try unsuccessfully lots of times early on to control animals once he realizes he can make that connection. And they just are like, no. No, go away. Then as he gets a little bit better at establishing that connection and getting the animal to actually connect with him, they don't necessarily always do exactly what he wants, but at least they're not like jumping on his face and scratching him. So we see Ezra doing that same progression. The third stage, fourth stage here in this paper, is the most fun. So the fourth stage of dominion, expressed over lions by virtuous living, is the state of companionship. So this is where the lions will do what you want them to do.
But really, you just should have taken the druid class if you really wanted an animal companion. A lot easier. Right at first level.
So yeah, by the beginning of the 5th century, the idea that virtue equated to power over the natural world was really prevalent. Mm-hmm. Oh, I should have mentioned earlier at the beginning. I did in our first recording that we lost. That a couple weeks ago we talked about religious influences on the Force and then how that backfed into the real world and stuff. So this is kind of a continuation of that series where we're talking about, if that wasn't like abundantly clear already.
Useful note to have. We should have thought about
Dang it. Yeah. Anyway.
I will also point out something I pointed out last time, that this whole pattern here of danger, of like painful interactions to banishment to passive interactions to companionship, that's also a really nice, really handy guide for how to deal with toxic people in your life.
Very true.
It's actually a really handy step-by-step guide.
Yep. So, I'm going to read this next story in its entirety as it appears in my paper here, because it's awesome. It's my favorite story ever.
Sweet academic paper goodness.
Yes, get ready, guys. Only I write fun academic papers. Mine, I think,
he
are
does,
a little bit
actually.
more,
I've edited several of them.
Yeah.
They're
less dry than normal.
Pretty solid.
So the most extraordinary example of a virtuous man living in a happy coexistence with a lion is that of Abba Gerasimos. Abba just means father, so it was sort of a title given to like the head of whatever little community of monks you were in, who had a lion as a companion for at least 5 years. The story begins when Gerasimos meets the lion one day by the Jordan River, finding it in great pain due to a splinter which had caused one of its paws to become inflamed and infected. Gerasimos removed the splinter, cleaned and dressed the wound. So this would be sort of passive, at least on the lion's part, right? It's not attacking him.
Yeah.
And then Gerasimos goes the extra mile, says, "Hey, let me help you out." Cleaned, dressed the wound, and dismissed the lion. So this would be sort of the stage 2.5/3 of just passive. Hey, I'm going to help you out, but then we're just going to go our ways.
This is where the party forgets about the animal companion until he poofs into existence.
Yeah, exactly. But I hit my pop filter.
You know what? It didn't even make a sound, honestly.
Yeah, that was
But the healed lion would not leave the elder. It followed him like a noble disciple wherever he went. Gerasimos fed and trained the lion to help him pasture the community's ass. The lion remained with Gerasimos even after it was chastised for eating that ass, though it had merely been stolen. So the donkey gets stolen, they think the lion eats it. He chews the lion out, a few days later the donkey comes back.
And then they had to have a really awkward conversation.
The lion carried water jars and performed whatever duties the ass performed while it was lost. So they used it just like a donkey.
Well, that was right decent of the lion. It wasn't even the one that... Wow.
Later, the ass was miraculously restored to Gerasimos when the lion discovered those who stole it and brought the ass back, seizing its leading rein in its mouth.
That is definitely the extra mile.
Yeah, and definitely a druid's
track down some... Yeah.
Definitely a step up from normal lions. After this, Gerasimos named the lion Jordanes, after the river. When Gerasimos died, Jordanes refused to eat and roared and cried in grief. When shown the grave of Gerasimos, the lion collapsed on the site, dying of grief.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, that's what happened to all of your animal companions.
Oh, man. So, such a phenomenal story has at its heart the message that virtue and obedience to God's commands, there's a typo there, God should be capitalized, inferring the ascetic lifestyle will result in powers over animals akin to those of Adam before the fall. So, that's my favorite lion story. It's just great. This lion is like awesome. Epic. And he would like sleep with Gerasimos and stuff, like they'd cuddle up at night so he could stay warm and stuff. It's just awesome.
That does sound cozy.
Yeah.
And terrifying.
Yeah. There's another story of a guy who he wanted to die a martyr's death because then that's like your free ticket to heaven or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he found a lion and was like, "Oh, I'll lay down in this lion's path because I can see him like sleeping in that cave over there. So he'll find me, he'll eat me, and then I can die a martyr."
Lion-assisted suicide is a great way to get to
And
heaven.
the lion like keeps walking over him, so he keeps like trying to get in the lion's way. He ends up like laying in the lion's spot in the cave, and the lion just won't eat him. And he's like, "Oh, fine, I guess I'm holy."
The lion's sitting here like, "Oh man, this guy's being so passive aggressive. If you want to lay there, okay, fine." But...
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man!
But
before we go on too far, was that Desert Father the genesis of the fable where the person takes the thorn out of the lion's paw?
No, that's Aesop. He's
that's
older
Aesop,
and Greek.
Oh,
so like I said in the recording that never got recorded, so you never heard it. Not all of these lion stories are real. Obviously, demons appearing as lions and scratching St. Anthony, probably not real. The fact that he apparently befriended a lion, that story actually is probably more realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
there are
We've seen
more accounts.
those sorts of
He
things.
was, in fact, the old world version of Siegfried and Roy.
There's there's a
with a better ending.
there's another lion story that is just, it's completely made up. So one of the hallmarks of all of these early ascetic stories is that they always tried to outdo each other. They'd always be like, "Oh, well, your little hermitage village over
I'm
there
more
has this
aesthetic
story."
than you.
Yeah, they'd always be like, "Oh, well, you have like, oh, Saint Anthony was like over with your little village. Oh, well, before Saint Anthony, we had an even holier guy in ours that totally founded our." And so they're always trying to outdo each other.
Yep.
So one of the stories was
Natural
literally,
human responses.
yeah, literally
Give us a
somebody
standard, and we will try
said,
and outdo each other to it.
the guy who trained Saint Anthony, I think it was Porus was his name. Anyway, they're like, yeah, no, he was at ours, and when he died, he was so holy that 2 lions came out of nowhere, out of the desert, and dug his grave for him, and then like helped bury him, and then they left after crying on his grave. You know, so like stories like that, it's like, okay, sure they did. Sure, 2 lions came and helped bury this guy. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are some.
But
stories
I
of
can
ladies.
buy a lion, an injured lion, being like
Nursed
peaceful
back to health,
and
yeah.
grateful to the human that helped it. That sort of thing happens, sure.
Yeah.
And I absolutely buy a lion detective solving missing ass problems. I buy that.
Yeah. So yeah, that part of the story, maybe not, but anyway,
What are you talking about? I'm on board with that.
it's like Darkwing
Let's
Duck,
option
but
this
a
for
lion.
television right now.
Lion detective, fantastic.
We'll get Nathan Fillion as his human companion.
I would watch that
Right?
show
Yeah.
right now.
Give me Nathan Fillion or Alan Tudyk, and yeah, let's
Why
do
not
this.
both of them? Alan Tudyk
Yes!
can be the lion.
Yeah, he can.
Done. I'm all on board for this show. So Ezra, throughout the series, gains more and more control over the Force, especially as he learns to master himself, right? To let go of his fears and things like that. So it's a little bit out of order as far as my order of when things happen here. But so it's from season 1, actually, but we're going to talk about why it still kind of works. So in season 1, episode 7, Out of Darkness, is the first time that Ezra Bridger tries to connect with an animal. And it kind of goes okay. It's basically just like, this is a force power you have, Ezra. Now you're aware of it. Okay. And like, that's kind of all it is.
Yeah.
Later in that episode, Sabine and Hera land on this planet that's like full of floating asteroids, and there are Fearnox in there, which are larger, scarier versions of Minox. Apparently, they're like cousins, species-wise, genetically. And they can't go out in the sun, so Hera and Sabine land on this planet to gather some fuel that's been left here since the Clone Wars. Because I'm sure that's still good, but, whatever.
Space fuel.
Yeah. Star Wars fuel, it never expires. But then, like, an asteroid passes in front of the
Never
star.
expires unless it's unrefined.
Yeah, that's true. And the Fearnox come out and are like gonna eat Hera and Sabine, and they can't do it. And this is a great parallel, which shows up all the time in these early Desert Father stories, that earthly powers, earthly means, are unable to defeat the real enemy, which is the devil, the spiritual side of things, right? And so if you try to fight off a lion, as some of the monks did, then you're going to get et by that lion, as some of the monks did. Yes. Because they weren't spiritual enough. They weren't humble enough to allow, the power of God or whatever to help them out. And so we see Sabine and Hera shooting, blowing stuff up. They barely escape with their lives. They are defeated, right? They're not dead, but they are defeated in their mission of gathering fuel. So earthly means are unable to defeat these creatures. These are creatures of darkness, just like St. Anthony's demons are creatures of darkness. So the only way to beat these creatures of darkness is to become more spiritually powerful than they are. To be humble, to be ascetic, to be self-centered in the sense of that yourself is centered and not your jimmies aren't rustled, basically, right?
Way to bring the memes back.
Yep.
Man. Here we go.
We got to do it. So, in 2 episodes later, season 1, episode 9, called Gathering Forces, Ezra, we've since discovered who the person was that ratted Ezra's parents out to the Empire, who got them killed. Ezra, I think quite fairly and understandably, has a really hard time with this, and has a hard time getting along with this person, because it's Sibo. And he's like, you're the one
Tebow
responsible.
The whole event.
Yeah, you're the one responsible for my parents' death and the destruction of my family. No, screw you. So his jimmies are rustled, right? He's all in inner turmoil. He's feeling really angry. It's all quite selfish. He's not feeling humble. So all of these like anti-spiritual things, right, are around Ezra. And
dark side feelings.
Yeah, so Ezra, my note says, Ezra must let go of the fear and hate and forgive Sibo before unlocking the spirituality necessary to control the Fearnox. Because they are, Kanan and Ezra go back to that planet as a way to lure the Grand Inquisitor and his goons that are following the Ghost. They're like, okay, drop us out of hyperspace, out the back in the Phantom. We'll land on this planet, they'll follow us, and we can hopefully trap him here and let the Fearnox eat him, and we'll escape. And so it just doesn't go very well. Ezra is because Kanan is busy basically deflecting all the blaster shots. And Kanan is like, this plan revolves around you getting these Fearnox to, getting mind control over him and having him attack. That's kind of where this goes. And Ezra is unable to do it for a little while. Because he's still wrestling with all of these vices, right? The hatred, the fear, the anger, all of those good dark side qualities, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as Ezra reaches out through the Force to Sibo and says, I forgive you, it's okay, that's the virtue that we're looking for, that spiritual centeredness, right? He gives up, he's humble, he's willing to forgive and to realize that, the vanity of thinking, well, I'm the center of the universe, my parents are killed, it's all your fault, I'm going to hate you, going from that to the virtue of humility of saying, okay, in the larger scheme of things, like what's done is done, I forgive you, you obviously didn't want to, it was the Empire literally plugged your brain into a computer and sifted out the information, it's not your fault, okay, it's all good, I forgive you. That's the moment that he makes the connection with the Fearnox, and the battle turns in favor of Ezra and Kanan. They all start jumping out and getting him, or getting the stormtroopers and stuff. Ezra, so I was like, man, this is kind of throwing off the order because we still have 3 more seasons of Ezra where he shows less control. So what happens to make him lose control and lose this holiness or whatever that allows him to control these dangerous creatures? And that's because the battle sort of evens itself out and Ezra dips to the dark side to control the bigger Fearnox. He again sort of says, oh, so we can do this, okay, I must be pretty cool. He starts to get the pride again, all those dark side things, gets the really big Mama Fearnox out there, which then does tip the battle back in their favor, but he's abandoned the proper spirituality needed.
Right.
And so for the next several episodes after that...
his pride is his downfall.
Yeah. He's not able to establish the same connections, although a couple episodes later is when he does get a Lothcat to attack the probe, instead of just shooting it, which would have alerted the Empire. So he does have some control, but it's never quite as big until, season 4, I think, is when the Loth Wolves show up. So he spends the next 2 seasons going, okay, now that I'm aware of what's possible, which is what a lot of these early monks saw, was, well, we've heard these stories from other monks, or we've seen other monks, because other monks were living around Gerasimos, for instance. So we've seen what is possible. We just have to make sure that we're spiritually prepared enough to get there. So then he spends season 2 and 3 getting there, mastering the Force, learning to grapple with the dark side and not give in to it. And then that's when in season 4, the Loth Wolf comes out and says, okay, now you're ready for the next bigger step. I will be your companion. I will be your guide. You're not necessarily controlling me the way you were literally mind controlling the Fearnox, but I'm here to help you out.
We've ascended to companionship.
Yeah, we've ascended to companionship. And that's all of season 4, is Ezra becomes completely selfless. He's as much of an ascetic as any Jedi is at this point, because the Jedi aren't true ascetics, even though they kind of are, but not really.
Yeah. Obi-Wan gets a little
and then we get all of that really cool spirituality stuff in Season 4, with the Loth Wolf helping him out. He connects with the Purgil in Season 2, Ezra does, and that's more of the passive relationship where it's like, okay, we're going to help you, you're going to help us, like, we don't need to shoot you, you're just hungry, okay, so we can let you feed on this gas deposit that we also need, and then you can go on your way. And then, of course, the season finale of Rebels, he calls in the Purgil, literally. This is one where it is the Dominion. He calls him in and is like, hey, all these Star Destroyers, can you make them go away? And they latch on and then warp him out of there, out of Lothal, the entire 7th Fleet. And so it's like, by the end of Season 4, he is like this ultimate spiritual master of himself, which the byproduct of is control over the natural world. So there you go.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Also, forgot to mention that another little tie in there is Ezra is, of course, a Hebrew name, meaning help, which is the name of a famous Old Testament prophet.
Yep. Oh no, wait, that was Elias. I was going to say, who also called animals. No, Elias was the one who called a bear out. A bunch of punk kids.
Ezra's the one that brought them back to Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity.
Right. Elias, though, that's my favorite story. Bunch of punk teenagers.
I know,
a bear come eat you, you little twits.
Make fun of my baldness.
It's just amazing. And I totally sympathize with him. Because, man, teenagers, you're the worst. Anyway. So that is... that's all I have as far as that parallel goes. But I was like, when I noticed that, I'm like, that would be a really cool episode just to go through that, because it was pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, it's always, go ahead.
Oh, well, I say, and that's part of the reason for this podcast, is to see how the things that we're seeing in Star Wars have parallels to, life lessons or other, ways of thinking to kind of enrich our lives.
So remember, people, be righteous and spiritual, and you too can have natural animals come and eat your enemies.
Yeah.
Disney tells us the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
True. That's true.
But where do you think Disney gets it from? This idea persists all throughout Christian Europe and bleeds
this
into
has
the
become
later...
an archetype that is well seated into many cultures. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
That inner power will eventually result in external. So spiritual power will eventually dominate natural power. Yep, pretty neat.
That is cool. Yeah. Thank you.
And it is kind of like a general motif too of the Jedi.
General motif.
Yeah. Hello there. Hello here. Anyway, so there we go.
Yeah.
You can.
Sorry, you all missed out on the original episode, but I think that turned out pretty well.
It did
too.
It did. Just a little bit more needling of Ross, and it would have been perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
But for more of this and other good Star Wars memes that I sometimes find, follow us on Twitter at More Civilized, and join the Facebook group More Civilized Podcast, where excellent memeage is pretty regularly occurring at this point. So,
true story.
Our listeners are doing a great job at keeping us well stocked.
Oh, and I just wanted to give a shout out for no reason at all to Neil Minson down in Texas. Say hi to Brad and Kara for us, and tell Brad to start listening to our podcast again, because I can tell he stopped, because I've stopped getting messages about it. Because when Brad was listening, he'd be like, oh, this was really funny, like this episode, and then I'd get like, a couple hours later, because he was like mowing the lawn one day, so he had a lot of episodes to get through, and he has stopped, so I know he stopped listening. So Neil, harass Brad. That's your homework for the week.
Well, there we go.
Cool beans.
Yeah. You can speak with me on Twitter at Mr_Rstar.
Do we have an official favorite listener this year? Okay, I'm going to do one then. I just wanted to say I'd do my own little shout out for Jeff Smith, who has started listening to us. We've seen him on Twitter, and just for hopping on there and agreeing with me about The Last Jedi.
There we go. I want to shout out Chris's sister Kate though, because her art is so flippin' good. Her
That
little
is true.
Kronk thing with shirtless Kylo. I was dying.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that one.
It needs to
I'll
be a
show
shirt.
it to you. Yeah, that's she's done a couple Star Wars comics now. I was like, well, apparently this is now a thing you do, and she's like, yeah, I guess.
We need to bring her into the fold.
Good times.
Anyway.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Itinerant Baxter and say things at me like where you can't find the podcast that you do want to find it, or subjects that you'd like to hear us cover, things like that, things that we do that really annoy you, that you want us to stop, like, newsy news or anything like that.
I have one more.
Ooh.
You guys remember Melissa Spencer?
Yes, I love Melissa.
Yeah.
So I ran into her the other day at Dragon's Keep. She came in to get some Pokemon cards.
That's awesome.
And so I was like, dude, I haven't seen you since high school. How are you? We had a lovely chat for like an 2 hours. It was fantastic just catching up with her. And her brother, Austin, was there.
Oh, Austin's a good man.
Austin's good, man. So I told her about the podcast. She said she'd listen. So if you ever make it around to listening to this episode, Melissa or Austin, hi.
Our friend Melissa, who is an internationally accomplished cosplayer.
Yeah.
Like, she's twice won second place in international
like in
cosplay
the world.
competitions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she's represented the United States as its official international
She
competitor.
does it pretty regularly.
She is astounding.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's insanely talented. She has a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah, it's like
And she's super
Star
nice.
Everhart is what she and
Something, I
her
don't know.
partner, they do.
But she and her brother are two of the nicest people you will
They are
ever
great.
meet.
They are.
They're so cool.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
So
that's
hello,
that's a
you two.
great shout out. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. At Dragon's Keep. That's
Covering
where
my
we're into.
adequacy because I got too busy listening to the
Hey,
episode to pick
that's
today.
okay.
Hey, you know,
I had
that's
already
okay.
planned the Neil one because
Yeah.
I wanted to harass Brad through Neil.
I'm better,
And then
better than Neil. Sorry,
yeah, it's so
you guys.
many
I have
things.
a problem,
It's
guys. I'm
almost
sorry.
unreal.
I hear things and I
Yep.
reflexively. Yeah, you all know this by now, but
Yep. And then I just remembered Melissa, and I was like, oh, she deserves it.
Yeah.
Because she's great.
she is great. Hopefully, she listens.
Yep. There we go.
Cool.
So,
Again, may the force be with you.
always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
I just said, you know what we love the most? Getting like 30 minutes into an episode and realizing the computer stopped recording. The comedy you will all miss in the outro now is a travesty.
It is, actually.
All of the million interruptions. Gosh, that was so
that was a
good.
good sequence.
Okay, Chris, can we do it again?
No, it won't be organic. We can't just do it all again.
What if we just get a non-organic version? It should be cheaper.
Yeah. We are making jokes. Ha 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 ha.
No,
ha,
I
ha.
like organic because everything's more expensive if it's organic.
Oh yeah,
That's the route I was
nice,
going.
that's
Shoot!
nice. Sorry, I'm just not quick enough on the uptake
Can
today.
I curse your metal body? You weren't fast enough?
Yeah,
Yeah, there
we
you go.
Curse my metal mind. I wasn't fast enough.
Let's see.
Also, druids are super OP, so that's always a good choice. Foolish rogue! I have class features more powerful than your entire class!
I just get frustrated when there's no reason why.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know?
The reason is the technology gods frowned upon you.
Yeah.
You did not make the proper sacrifices.
And then if you talk to like the software support people and all that stuff, they'll just be like, "Oh, it's user error." Like, no, freaking, it was not user error.
As the computer's just upset that you named your dog Act.
I think so.
Stop it. Stop it right now.
So yeah,